Hello, good morning, cherished viewers. You are all welcome to my program, Mining for the Truth. Joseph Vata is my name, from Ghana, West Africa. Mining for the Truth refers to the process of digging to discover the undiluted doctrines of Christ, our 10th Church of Christ. It has two purposes as follows. One, to teach the word. John 1 verse 1, the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. You can prove by going to Genesis 1 verse 1. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The Hebrew word for God there is Elohim, God the Father, God the Son, the Word, Jesus Christ, then God the Holy Spirit. 2, to teach the truth. John 8:32, as you can find on the screen. And you will know the truth, and the truth will make you free. What is the truth? John 17 verse 17. Sanctify them by your truth, your word is truth. What is the truth manifestation? John 14 verse 6. And Jesus said to him, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except by me, or except through me. I welcome all my viewers from all over the world. Australia, Dubai, USA, India, Pakistan, Philippines, Tokyo, Japan, Ghana, everywhere. You have been doing so well, and God bless you so much. Officially, Go Ye Therefore has reached 1K views on Facebook. I am surprised. I got that one on Wednesday, 16th April 2025 was when I saw that I've gotten 1K views. I'm so happy. In fact, I cherish that teaching so much. Of course, as a Great Commission. And my reason of here is that I'm trying to win souls for Christ, or trying to share the gospel of Christ. You, Max Campus Church in Chicago, you are all welcome. Dr. Odonko, this is Ata. I love you so much, and I've missed you as well. You are welcome. Everything will be well, so don't worry, okay? God's time is the best. And there's a song which is saying that I have decided to follow Jesus, and there's no turning back. Don't turn your back on God, especially when things are not happening the way you want to. At the right time, He's going to fulfill all His promises with you. Having said that, what do I have for you today? Today is Friday, 18th April 2025. Good Friday by the world. So Saturday will be 19th, Holy Saturday. Monday will be Easter Monday. In Ghana, where people go to beach, a whole lot. So this should tell you that I'm coming to treat about Easter. Easter. There's a reason why I have paused, or I'm posting a video inside the book of Ecclesiastes. Officially, we are learning the book of Ecclesiastes, but this has become vital to treat. My first time of treating Easter in my life, and it is a doctrine of the Church of Christ. So I welcome all my church members and even everybody. Of course, it is a worthy festival, so people don't want the truth, actually. Now, the topic is Easter celebration, biblical or paganism? So I think it is very simple. Is Easter celebration biblical or paganism? Now, text is Galatians 4, verse 9 to 10. So let's read the text and then we move on. But now, after you have known God, or rather are known by God, how is it that you turn again to the weak and beggarly element to which you desire again to be in bondage? You observe days and months and seasons and years. I read again. But now you have known God, or rather are known by God. How is it that you turn again to the weak and beggarly element to which you desire again to be in bondage? You observe days and months and seasons and years. Of course, you don't understand what I'm reading, but then you're going to understand as we move on. So, is Easter celebration biblical or paganism? What church do you attend? Why are you celebrating Easter? Of course, except a learned Church of Christ member can explain this to you. And I'm going to use the Bible. I'm not going to narrate any story to you to bring about history. History is not bad, but who knows? Someone can lie on the internet, and because the person is no more there, we all follow it. My evidence is the Bible than maybe commentaries, actually. Now, before we start, I think we have to know the objectives of the studies. So, objectives before the introduction. 1 or A, as on the board. To know what Paul meant in Galatians 4, verse 10. B, to know what is Easter. When we say Easter, what do you mean by that? Is Acts 12, verse 4 a proof to celebrate Easter? D, to know the 4 biblical reasons why churches of Christ do not celebrate Easter. But I'm coming. I want to check my camera. Okay. So, introduction. The scriptures are silent concerning any authorized memorial of Jesus' death and resurrection. Christians are not instructed to commemorate Easter for Christ's death and resurrection. Yes, it is true. So, basically, denominations are celebrating Easter. At times, I am surprised. These churches are made up of people who are literate, professors, bankers, engineers. So I don't know. So this should tell you that Satan is very strong. Having convinced them, why are you even in that church? What proof do you have as a human being to invent your church? You have no proof. So those there are those who celebrate Easter. One, I mentioned Christian. They call themselves also Christians. It is not true. You are deceiving yourself. A Christian is a property of Christ, a follower of Christ, an apprentice of Christ, a disciple of Christ who has been baptized into Church of Christ, staying faithfully to go to heaven. Period. So if you're a believer believing in any other faith, it makes you a pagan or a heathen, antichrist official. And you, this pastor, who has invented this church, or the person who had already done the invention, died and gone. If you are alive or succeeded, you are hereby informed that refrain from your pride, become submissive, get baptized into the Lord's church, stay faithful before you can inherit heaven. If you refuse, yourself and your members, because you are all blind, you all fall into a pit. I mean, you go to hell at the end of judgment. Of course, you can sit down there to debate. Me, I don't care. My duty is to warn you. God is not begging you to attend his church to come to heaven. There are people who are willing to go. So God does not force anyone to choose or to decide. But he's going to judge at the end. No matter your faith. Satan does not judge, in case you're unaware. I'm surprised that people don't know the Bible. Satan does not judge. Only God judges. And whoever dies is judged by God only. Now, when God judges you, and then you go to Tetalos is when Satan has authority over you. So Satan has no right to judge a human being when he or she dies. You won't find this in the Bible, except God. So those who are going to paradise are for God. Those into the talons are for Satan. But Satan is not a shareholder in judgment. He is not a stakeholder in judgment. All right, we move on. So I'm a Christian. So far as you attend different churches, it makes you a believer. A believer is not a Christian. A believer is someone who believes in the faith. So Christians, I can also call myself a believer in the sense that I have faith in Jesus Christ. I suppose I'm not confusing you. Because if you don't understand later, you can chat and then I will explain. Or go and then watch my video on The Rock. No, I said The Rock. What is a Christian? When you go there, I think you're going to understand. Once again, a believer is not a Christian. So if you're a believer attending any church, don't call yourself a Christian. You are deceiving yourself. You have no membership in the Lord's church. Though you think that you are following Christ, but you are deceiving yourself. Indeed, if you want to follow Christ, you must be in his church. When he died on the cross, shed his blood was when the church began. In fact, he purchased the church with his blood. So we say the church of Christ is the body of Christ. You are outside the body. If you are in, then salvation can be possible for you. But if you are out, you are an opposition or you are an opponent. The pastor has no right to invent any church in this world. So we say that Christians are not instructed to commemorate Easter for Christ's death and resurrection. Where can you prove this? In the Bible. That Easter is equal to the resurrection and death of Christ. Easter celebration is not biblical, therefore paganism. So the title is Easter celebration biblical or paganism. It is not biblical, therefore it is paganism. Idol worship. I say facts. So if you don't have a heart, then you can't follow me. A fact is information without emotion. So if the truth hurts you, it is not my business. If you are so happy and enthusiastic to spread the false gospel of Satan, why should I be discouraged to also spread the true gospel of Christ? So we are competing with the world. The Antichrists are there to win souls. I'm also here to win souls. Easter was wrongly mentioned in Acts 12, verse 4, in the King James Version Bible. However, it was later translated Passover in the New King James Version. So the whole argument is that, of course, I will explain. Because on the objectives, we have, is Act 12 verse 4 a proof to celebrate Easter? When you go there, the word used is Easter. That is, if I'm using the King James Version, that's why you don't say the word using King James. I use New King James Version, ESV, NASB. I have an NIV, but I don't normally use. In fact, I prefer to use the New King James. So the New King James is using the word Passover, and the Old King James is using Easter. So we are saying that Easter was wrongly mentioned in Acts 12 verse 4 in the King James Version Bible. We are hereby informed that I wrote this teaching on 15th. That was Tuesday, April 2025. I didn't know why, but it was an assignment for me to write for my professor. Because from his claims, he has gone through my teachings on Facebook and YouTube, and he has not seen any Easter. So he said I should use this opportunity to teach. So I wrote it newly on 15th. Now I will prove. If you go here, I have the downside, the footnote, so you can see April 15th, 2025. So you see my name is there. You say Fata, and then page 1. Okay, it is 4-page document, I'm sure. So it's a new type, and I've shared with only one sister. She read and then she said, "Oh, it is okay." My proofreader, actually. The Bible has never described the death and resurrection of Jesus as an occasion for Easter celebration. You see, I find teaching these doctrines of our church so easier because I have facts to buttress every argument. Where in the Bible can you prove to me that Easter is used to replace the death and resurrection of Christ? I reiterate that the Bible has never described the death and resurrection of Jesus as an occasion for Easter celebration. If you are sinning, keep quiet and sin. Don't use the Bible. If you want to sin, sin. Fine, nobody cares. No one is forcing no one in this life. It is your own life. Live it the way you want. But don't be hypocrites. The apostles never celebrated Easter annually to remember Jesus. In fact, none died annually. The apostles never celebrated Easter to remember Christ every year. And nobody dies every year. According to Mosaic dispensation, so we mean from patriarchal age to Mosaic age. So let's go to the issue where God was speaking to the Israelites through Moses. The Mosaic law, the 10 commandments, plus additional 613 laws were for the Jewish nation only. We mean the nation Israel, which did not include all people and explicitly excluded the annual celebration of Easter. Where can you find in the Mosaic law 10 commandments and additional 613 laws that God told the Israelites to celebrate Easter? Christ had not even been born in the flesh. Christ was in heaven, and he was using Moses as a lawgiver and leader to lead the Israelites from Egypt into Canaan, of course, from bondage to freedom. So Christ was there, and Christ was using Moses officially. Christ had not been born in the flesh. So therefore, Easter celebration was not an occasion or a law for the Israelites, even in the Old Testament. The laws did not include the Gentiles, non-Jews. So I said it was only for the Israelites only. No nearby country or town or region was included. Plus the New Testament Christians. Let's go to Exodus. Deuteronomy 5 verse 1 to 3. Deuteronomy 5 verse 1 to 3. Verse 1 to 3. Very good. And Moses called all Israel and said to them, "Hear, O Israel, the statutes and judgments which I speak in your hearing today, that you may learn them and be careful to observe them, and be careful to observe them. The Lord our God made a covenant with us in Horeb." So this was a covenant between God and his nation Israel only. The last one. The Lord did not make this covenant with our fathers, but with us. So this wasn't even applicable to Abraham, but specifically to the Israelites, those who are here today, all of us who are alive. Were you there? And I'm saying that even them, Easter was not a law. How can you prove even in the Old Testament that Moses and the Israelites were celebrating Easter? God did not tell even the Israelites to celebrate Easter as a law, since Christ was not fleshly born. Very good. Even this one already I've said it. The celebration of Easter was paganism, And paganism refers to any other religious or spiritual belief and practices other than Christianity, Judaism, and Islam. The celebration of Easter was paganism, even to those who started to celebrate. And paganism refers to any religious or spiritual belief other than Christianity, Islam, and Judaism. Now, paganism does not believe in the living God. People who are pagans do not believe in the living God. They believe in their own faith. It could be worshiping of a bull, a tree, a river, a stone, a shrine. Someone who is worshiping a shrine is an antagonist to the living God. God hates idols. Do not make idols, was what we read in the Ten Commandments. Pagans are heathens and they are antichrists. So if you are celebrating Easter, you are a pagan. If you are celebrating Easter, you are a heathen. If you are celebrating Easter, you are an antichrist. You see, me, I don't force my students to learn. On Tuesday, I was in class. Now, when I go to class, I greet. I ask about their health, how they are, or they were faring. Next announcement is that if you don't like my subject, you walk out. I won't force you. I didn't bring you to school to study, and I've not forced anyone to come to my class. It is not compulsory. But you don't sit in my class to fool. That one you are in danger. So also, God is not begging you to attend His church. I am not here to beg you, but to tell you the truth, to enlighten you, to open your eye, so that you leave your darkness into light and become enlightened. Whoever celebrates Easter spiritually is an antichrist. So, if you are celebrating Easter spiritually, I think later you understand why I'm using the word spiritually. It means you are an antichrist. Christians are not required to celebrate Easter. Today, I'm on holiday since Thursday. So from Thursday to Monday are all holidays for me. So I'll be home. I'll be doing some few things. You understand? Why? Because the world is celebrating, and at workplace, we are on break for a while. I don't celebrate Easter spiritually. Therefore, I have nothing. Christians are not required to celebrate Easter. Christians are Israel of God. Galatians 6, verse 16c. Let's read there and see. We are not nation Israel, but Israel of God. Galatians 6, verse 16. See, when I say see, I mean the last part. And upon the Israel of God. So we're saying that Christians are Israel of God, not the nation Israel, as we read in Deuteronomy 5, verse 1 to 3. Or any worldly believers. Of course, if you are in any denomination, you are in the world. There's no heaven for you, my brother, my sister. You are wasting your time. You are just wasting your time in vain. And you wouldn't know it, because Satan has brainwashed you. When you die and you are judged, that's when you see that, I had wasted my time when I had a chance. And there's no turning back. Remember Luke 16, verse 19 to 31. The story of the rich man and then Lazarus. The rich man was in torment, in the Tartarus. He begged, gave many excuses, wanting to be comforted or wanted to have come back to life and then change his mind. Upon all his excuses, he was told, it is or it was too late. Don't die to go there before you become reasonable. Reason with me now and have a change of mind. The phrase Israel of God means what? 1. Unified people of God consisting of both Jews and Gentiles having faith in Jesus Christ. Remember, for the Israelites, non-Jews were not apart. They were segregated, except that you were a Jew. Non-Jews were not part of the nation Israel. But in Christianity, both Jews and non-Jews. So we say that both Jews and Gentiles having faith in Jesus Christ, we call ourselves Israel of God. 2. Those who do not segment between the circumcised and uncircumcised. Yes. To be from Israel, you must be circumcised. People who were uncircumcised were considered unclean. And those who wanted to marry any Israelites, of course, the females, were supposed to be circumcised before. We move on. B. Many people have ignorantly celebrated Easter before, of course, even myself. I remember I was teaching Christmas celebration. I made mention that we have celebrated Xmas over and over. For Easter, I've celebrated and celebrated. Of course, I didn't know. I thank God that I didn't die at that time. Whether you know or not, my friend, it's not an excuse. They reserve a special food, chicken, bought rice. In the olden days, we only ate rice on occasions. So, Christmas, we have Easter, and then my hometown, Elmina, Bakatoy, happens to be the name of the festival that we were celebrating. So, I think 3 times in a year, before you chew chicken, eat rice and stew. So special foods and also palm soup. These were specially made for those festive occasions. Different attire, shoes and others to dress, to take pictures. I remember when we were young, when you dress, you roam in the town to greet. And after greeting, the elders were giving us money. It was sweet to be a child, actually. So go and greet those that you know. Oh, you are looking very beautiful. Then they'll give you something. It could be a bread, biscuits. They were all buying festive foods to store because they knew that children will roam how to have to greet to show how nicely we were dressed. So if you're a parent who could not buy for your child, this child will cry and cry and cry and cry and cry because we were children. Others were doing, so we were also. It became more or less a culture. So we say that it continues. So many people have ignorantly celebrated Easter before. In fact, most of us, and even some are still celebrating. It continues to be a time of reflection. That's why people are saying that Christ died on Friday and resurrected on Sunday. Of course, it is fake. Generosity, sharing of food, and even giving of money, and shared moment of happiness. That is why we meet. People from the cities will travel to the villages. They came and they were very happy. We were not seeing them until Xmas, Bakatoy, or Easter. It was when we saw our own siblings, half brothers, and those who have traveled. Gift giving, already I've mentioned. Family and other social gatherings. It is a holiday, as I said. My holidays are from Thursday to Monday, so about 4 days. I can travel to my hometown to enjoy myself in the olden days, but not now. So we have family and social gatherings. Get together, and families will meet. Some will travel to dine. Some will even go for beach, as I've been saying that in Ghana. Easter Monday is beach. So we go there and see the way they are selling. Symbolic decoration. Some will buy some lights, bulbs, some flowers, some decorated trees to signal that indeed it is time for Easter. And feasting. Good food. Good foods are eaten during the, so some may say festive occasion. People enjoy themselves, buy better wine to drink. It is once a while. But Paul clearly said in 1 Corinthians 13, verse 11, I read, when I was a child, I spoke as a child, I understood as a child, I taught as a child. But when I became a man, I put away childish things. When I was a child, I spoke as a child, I understood as a child, I taught as a child. But when I became a man, I put away childish things. Are you still young or adult? A professor who celebrates Easter. What church do you attend? Of course, I'm challenging you. You can't prove this church anywhere in the Bible. It is a man-made religion. And it is a sin for you to even own a church. You have no right. You have no right to invent a church. Now that you have grown, you have seen that your church has no source in the Bible. You are still attending to impress human beings. Or the pastor is my friend, so when I shop the church, he will come to my house and then worry me. He is not going to save you at the end. And Jesus said to him, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. John 14, verse 6. Act 4, verse 12 is saying that there is no any other name and the heavens and then under the earth except Jesus Christ. Your pastor is not your savior. Salvation is found only through Christ, except through me is the main phrase when we read the John 14, verse 6. The phrase, when I became a man, means to have the senses exercised to discern both good and evil. Hebrews 5, verse 14b. Now that you have gone to school, you are matured in thought. So now you are a man, and no more a brainwashed child. As I said that we were eating and feasting, roaming in my community, and literally dressed. Nowadays, who has time? Now the world is so difficult that I said difficult. The world is now hard that people even don't have time to buy, to preserve a special cloth to wear for special occasions, unless it's celebrities and cool. And here is town. Where I'm living is town. So when we are walking by, we don't stand to watch someone because the person is neatly dressed. People keep on buying, wearing new clothing every day. This reminds me of my visit to Obuasi, I think, last 2 years, to Doris's parent. Officially, I was invited. The mother is very sensible. In fact, she said something, and I'm going to tell you. She said, teacher, nowadays, if you have a store to sell clothing, then no one will buy. Because this current generation isn't the same as the former one, where we bought clothing to pack them, to wear them for special occasion, or we will wait and buy special clothing to wear for special occasion. People dress neatly and nicely every day. So if you're not careful, no one is going to buy your clothing because they keep on buying new clothing. I mean to say that we are no more in the former times where I will have to save money purposely to go and buy a cloth to wear to celebrate Easter, and then afterwards I put it down unless the following year. This is no more happening. So it means that those who are running boutique are sometimes at a loss. The man is I was surprised how she came with that ideology. All right. So now that we are grown, we have to shun all those celebrations and the feasting. See, however, one can choose. So here is where you have to listen. I make mention that people who celebrate Easter spiritually are pagans. So listen to the scene. However, one can choose to observe Easter as merely as a secular holiday. So the secular here is non-spiritual. It means it is temporal. I will explain. For example, now I am home. So I can have quality time with my family. I can have quality time to rest, to sleep. Why? Because I am resting and sleeping during the Easter holidays given to me by my workplace or per my work permit. So if you are home, enjoy yourself with your family because the world is celebrating Easter and therefore where you work to, they are giving you the Easter holidays. Fine. That one, no sin has been committed because you have no notion that I'm celebrating Easter, therefore I'm resting. But if it is purposely and carefully planned to celebrate with special foods, decoration, and adherence, it is a sin. People who don't learn the Bible have their heads so big as septic tanks. The headquarters of foolishness, actually. You know septic tank, the tank which contains toilets. So if you don't read the Bible, your head grows so bigger and thinking that you are knowledgeable, of course, by virtue of the quantum of and then the weight of your head. I remember they have been saying that in the olden days in Ghana, the chiefs were roaming from house to house to pick children or those with bigger heads to work at their palaces, supposing that big head is equal to wisdom. I was told, so I cannot verify. So let's assume that it is true. People who don't study the Bible have their heads becoming as bigger as septic tank, the headquarters of foolishness. Why? Because there are it is because of the foolish thoughts. That's why the head has become that big. When you learn, you prune yourself. But if you don't learn, you grow unnecessary weeds. So if you plan and you are not wiser than God, as I'm speaking, I don't have anything here, especially bought or made for Easter. So I'm enjoying my holidays as a secular holiday. That's all. Non-spiritual, as temporary, because on Tuesday I will resume work. So Friday, by this time, I'll be at work. But if it is purposely and carefully planned, so officially you have planned to celebrate Easter carefully with special food. So as I'm speaking, people will go and buy chicken to roast, to fry, to kill, to prepare food. Decoration, they will change their curtains and bring some lighting. Some will even paint. Renovation and adherence. I'm going to obey the dictate of the word. It is a sin. Matthew 15 verse 3. There's something there. You have transgressed a law. Matthew 15 verse 3. He answered and said to them, why do you also transgress the commandment of God because of your tradition? So it's a question. He answered and said to them, why do you also transgress the commandment of God because of your tradition? Once again, we said that the Christian does not celebrate Easter because it is a festival of pagans. When you carefully plan the Easter, buy special meat, special fish, special food to cook. Your idea being that I want to celebrate Easter. It is a sin. You have transgressed God's law. As we read in Matthew 15 verse 3. But you can celebrate it as a secular holiday. Same as the Christmas. Why? Because the whole world will give us some holidays during these occasions. End of the introduction. Of course, I was trying to warm up. Now we start the main concept. Of course, once again, the objectives are: one, to know what Paul meant in Galatians 4 verse 9 and 10. B, to know what is Easter. C, or 3, is Acts 12 verse 4 a proof to celebrate Easter. And then D, to know the 4 biblical reasons why churches of Christ, there was a typo error. I made it church. But if you go to the point D, as you are going, you see that churches of Christ do not celebrate Easter. So, first things first. A, what did Paul mean in Galatians 4 verse 10? So we're going to do exegesis. I will also exegete Acts 12 verse 4. Now, Galatia was not a city, but a province in Asia Minor. Of course, I'm trying to trace where Paul was speaking. The church's membership was undoubtedly composed mainly of Gentiles and uncircumcised males. So Galatians 5 verse 2, 6 verse 13. Let's read and see. And to clarify what we just said. 5 verse 2, 6 verse 13. Indeed, I, Paul, say to you that if you become circumcised, Christ will profit you nothing. 6:13. For not even those who are circumcised keep the law, but they desire to have you circumcised, that they may boast in your flesh. So my point has been clear, that they were composed of many Gentiles and uncircumcised males. Thus, they were pagan worshippers. So this means that the church in Galatia, the members were formerly into paganism, and now they have been able to be migrated into Christianity. And definitely, they may love to return back to their former self. So now let's see the text itself. Paul was addressing the Christians of the Galatians Church of Christ, warning them that. So at times we will continue. When we say that our church is in the Bible, then people start to agitate. Okay. But here the Bible is making reference to church at Galatia. Which church was that? Your church or whose church? When was your church established? Even Roman Catholic Church, that people claim that it was the first church to come. It's even not true. We have kingdoms. We have what we call the political world of the New Testament. There were kings and kings and kings, kingdoms and then kingdoms. So there was a series of fighting. So Rome, or Roman kingdom, was the kingdom under which Christ came to establish his church. So Christ's church overthrown the Roman Empire. Rome then was not a church. They were rather antichrist. Most of the apostles were martyred by the Roman soldiers. So when you hear of Antichrist, Antichrist isn't someone who is now to come. Antichrist is you and I. The moment I stand here to teach false doctrine, I am an Antichrist. When you lie against the Bible, you are also an Antichrist. When you fight against the truth, you are an Antichrist. So denominationalism is also Antichrist. Why? Because Satan Satan has also invented many churches to counter-attack to Christ, Church of Christ. These are things that's a fact that you must know. So Rome, they were purely antichrist. They killed Christ actually. So if you think that someone is to rise from the sea with horns, I think with time I'll make time to teach the book of Revelation, the whole book. As I'm teaching the book of Ecclesiastes, I will try. I think already I'm done with the writing. But some of these things I don't like to teach because it is so cheap to teach. People have refused to understand. Therefore, they are being misled. But I don't see those things as something so crucial. Except that human beings have refused to listen to the truth. You understand? So the Roman soldiers were rather an antichrist. Now we move on. So there was a church at Galatia. Later we will see that there was also a church at Jerusalem. And that's when we start to read the Acts 12 verse 1 throughout the 5 and even the 6 and 8. So Paul, we are on Galatians 4 verse 9 to 10 as we are using for the main text. Paul was addressing the Christians of the Galatian Church of Christ, warning them that they were returning to their worldly human philosophies and traditions on old customs of trusting on legalistic practices and rituals rather than trusting, adhering, and following in the freedom and grace found in Jesus Christ. A dog has returned, or a dog was returning to its vomit. So Paul was warning them. Now you are in Christ. You are free. Free from what? From bondage. From what bondage? Human philosophies or human traditions. So why were they returning back? They were to shun observing special days, months, seasons, and years. And these are likely to be the Jewish calendar and traditions. Just as in Ghana or in the world, our calendar is saying that Friday is Good Friday, Holy Saturday, Holy Sunday, Easter Sunday, and Easter Monday. So Paul is also warning you and I that we should refrain from these celebrations. We were formerly in it. The grace of Christ has come. We are no more in darkness. We are in the light. So I will say, Father, will never ever, at my right senses, sin against the Bible. The Bible is my constitution. What I've been saying that. Unless I use it to bear something, I will never partake it. You don't tell me how to live my life. I decide what to do and not to do. Of course, you can choose to sin and go to hell. Me, I don't care. Even if you are my wife and then you want to go to hell, I won't force you. God created you. My duty is to help you, to encourage you, to teach you, to direct you that let us go to heaven together. If you insist, I won't divorce you. You are on your own. Of course, I didn't give birth to you anyway. So you don't marry and then force the spouse by force anyway. He urged them never to return to evade being caged. When they had returned, they will be in a cage. They will be in a bondage. So he was saying that they were not to return so that they can evade the cage by these evil practices, but to hold steadfastly their faith in Jesus. The moment you return, already you were in bondage. Now that you are free, you still want to go back. When you go there, you are now in a cage, and there's no turning back. We move on. The passage speaks against legalism and a reminder to prioritize faith and relationship with God over brainwashed, rigid adherence to human bondage. Brainwashed. the world would have been, has been brainwashed. When we find percentage of those who are celebrating Easter, I would say 99.9. Even we have Christians, Church of Christ Christians, who also celebrate Easter spiritually. Yes. Always, I've been saying that I am not an angel. I am a sinner as you were a sinner. I try to be righteous. So don't think that members who attend Churches of Christ are angels. No. We are all sinners. If fornication is there, some stake betting, everything that you find in the world is also found in the church. Why? Because formerly we were afar. Some were attending different churches. Some were not even in any church. And now we are all in there. So intermittently, Satan lures us to commit sin. Some have been dodging to go for prayers. Some have been dodging to worship with other churches, to dance. However, we don't dance when we meet as Christians. So secretly, they go there to dance and then behave themselves as they were. So those are the brainwashed, rigid adherents to bondage. And you see, when you go there, that place is very sweet. So there's a freedom to do what you want. You drink what you want. You eat what you want. You go out to enjoy your life. As if Christianity is rather bondage. All right. It became an imperative. It became an authoritative. It became an authoritative. So authority for Paul to reprimand them that Christians must not keep the traditions of the pagans. So if you're a Christian, you don't celebrate Easter. Once again, if you're a Christian isn't a believer in some ways. A Christian is someone who has been baptized and attends Church of Christ. However, I call myself a believer because I believe in the faith of Christ. That's all. Or my faith is Church of Christ. But when you compare a believer and Christian, you mean that the believer has not been baptized to become a Christian. These are things that you must know. But once you have chosen to follow Christ, you are a believer. Just as a fetish priest is also a believer to the lesser God. We move on. B. What is Easter? What is Easter? So I hope you have understood the text of the topic. Is Easter celebration biblical or paganism? B. What is Easter? So I'm sure that here is where most will want to hear. Of course, they would have even become so happy if I only focus on this. No. We don't teach Bible in this manner. You try to build a point. According to Vine's Expository Dictionary. Now, previously I've been saying that I don't use commentary. I use a concordance and then dictionaries. But I don't read commentary. I don't like that. Because I use my common sense. So according to Vine's Expository Dictionary, the term Easter is not of Christian origin. It is another form of Astarte or Astarte, one of the titles of the Chaldean goddess, the Queen of Heaven. So the name was even attributed to a lesser god, Chaldean goddess. Of course, a female, if I'm not mistaken. The pagan festival of Easter was introduced into the Western religion. It was introduced as part of the attempt to adapt pagan festival to Christian. The word adapt means to equate and change. So there was a little so transition. Just as they changed the worshiping of Sol, S-O-L, into Christmas, because they were losing audience to worship. So therefore, they made it Christ Mass, and it became so popular. So the name Christmas. So they be saying that Easter was rather transitioned, okay, into Christianity. So don't think that it is in Christianity. Now, if Easter is part of Christianity, why am I not celebrating? Ishtar or Easter was a pagan worship. So I'll have to make it big. Ishtar. I think it's the name of a goddess. It's the name of goddess. You see, one thing you must know that I've been saying always is that the purpose of Bible studies is not about to become a good historian, to remember the scriptures, but to learn the truth. That's all. So I will not teach this to give you the history about the Easter. No. That isn't the concept. We are looking at whether it is right or wrong to celebrate Easter, and not to come here and then. How am I certain that the story isn't even, or the history isn't even fake? As I said, people have propounded fake theories and they have died. Just as they also invented denominations, and now they are dead and gone, misleading the mass. Your master who invented your church, if he's dead, is now in Tartarus and he's suffering or she's suffering there. How she wishes or how he wishes can come back to tell you that, my friend, refrain from my church because I'm suffering. And blindly, you also follow him. You also die and go there. The same thing. So me, I don't believe in this. Now, histories are good. It is good to learn history of the Bible, but the interest is to learn the truth. Here I'm teaching about Easter, period. I'm not to go and then bring in the goddess, the story of the God when she was born. No. Otherwise, it becomes a digression, not even deviation. Of course, we have the digression different from deviation. So, Easter was a pagan worship which is still celebrated by every spring. It is still celebrated by every spring of the denominational religious world as the Resurrection Sunday of Jesus Christ. Yes, when we say spring, we mean to come by. Anybody who invents a church must celebrate Easter. I think some few churches may not celebrate. I don't want to mention it. I think I know of some three denominations who might not also celebrate Easter. I remember when I tweeted about tongues speaking. One person from Jehovah's Witness, USA, he congratulated me a lot that they don't also believe in tongues speaking. And I said, oh, for this one, you have done well. The person is in USA. And he sent me a mail that I've done so much well to prove the point so accurately that tongue speaking is no longer existing. On and on, I talk about the Titan, and so it's like anytime I teach, then was when I said that, oh, maybe their church, they don't also do this. And that's why I'm saying that we have some 2 or 3 churches who don't also support the celebration of Easter, Christmas, and are seen as a festival for the pagans, and then which is amazing. Anyway, so we move on. So any church being invented also fall into the same pattern to celebrate Easter. Not all of them. And they are saying that the Easter Sunday is the day that Christ resurrected. Easter celebration is a foolish, worldly, human wisdom. 1 Corinthians 3 verse 19a. It is so foolishness to insist that we celebrate Easter. So 3 verse 19a. For the wisdom of this world is foolishness with God. Period. If you are a professor and you're celebrating Easter with all your creams, your head is full of chaff. Your head is full of chaff and a headquarters of foolish thoughts. There's a man called Noah Webster. He said, education without the Bible is useless. So if you're a professor of engineering and wherever you are, who don't say the Bible, your knowledge is worldly wisdom. And God is saying that for the wisdom of this world is foolishness with him. Why? Because you have acquired, some even don't believe in God. Because they have learned foolish worldly wisdom. So now they are claiming that I'm a scientist, and upon all my research, I've not seen God before. If God exists, why is it that my child was killed by a disease? If God exists, why am I in afflictions? We have so many theories. The artists, they are all there to challenge. Your wisdom and biblical knowledge is foolishness with God. So the professor does not tell God how he should act. Of course, you can choose to worship Satan. Who cares? Of course, most people belong to Freemason. We don't care. But as I mentioned initially, when you die, your master there that you're worshiping has no right to judge you. God will judge you. I reiterate. Easter celebration is a foolish, worldly, human wisdom. It was crafted by a human being. It has nothing to do with Christ. It is not found in the Bible as celebrated by the apostles. Why can you prove it? That Peter and Paul, John, James were celebrating Easter when Christ died and left. Why can you give me an instance? We have been watching this film sometimes. Please, can you point to me anywhere in the video that Paul and Peter were celebrating Easter? Don't you have common sense in this life? At times I'm surprised that a full-grown human being has no common sense. And therefore the person has been brainwashed and foolishly spreading false information. They glorify themselves in their pride and arrogance. They won't even let you talk because they are being influenced by Satan. To celebrate Easter is idol worship. Leviticus 26 verse 1. You shall not make idols for yourselves, neither a carved image nor a sacred pillar shall you rear up for yourself, nor shall you set up an engraved stone in your land to bow down to it, for I am the Lord your God. The idol here isn't always an object. But if you choose money over worshiping God, the money is your idol. People who know the Bible. If you choose to celebrate Easter, the Easter is your idol. That's why I'm saying that. To celebrate Easter is idol worship because it is rooted in paganism. And pagans are heathens. Heathens are antichrist. The word is antichrist, against Christ. So definitely, a pagan does not believe in the true living God. Period. So whatever is important to you, blocking you, becoming an obstacle to worship God, whatever you are prioritized over God is an idol. Cheap and then simple. How can Jesus die and there is a lot every year? On Wednesday, I was at the office. There was a teacher from a mechanical department, and then they were having some discussion outside. with some of my colleague teachers. He was asking them that, so how can Jesus die and rise every year? I was there and I said, hey. So you can imagine this question. And then a nun could answer that, why is it that Christ died almost every year on Friday and the resurrect on Sunday every year? My friend, to you also, I'm saying that. How can Jesus die and resurrect every year? My father died in 2014, August 8th. We buried him in 5th, on 5th to 8th January 2015. He has not risen again. Hebrews 9 verse 27. For it is appointed for man to die once, and after death, judgment. Christ died and arose only once. He is in heaven. If you are not a witch or wizard, how can you by force bury the living? Christ is now in heaven, seated at the right hand side of his Father. And you are here and tell me that he is going, or he is dead, and therefore he is going to arise on Sunday. This logic is insane. You can't. Now, supposing that you are writing thesis or project work, how can you prove this? How can you prove this to a professor or your lecturer that Christ, who had died long ago, is dying every year and then arising every year? So this was what my friend teacher was asking my colleague that, hey, so Jesus dies and then arises every year. How can Christ die and rise every year? That's my question. I mean, to those who insist to celebrate Easter. Your grandfather who died, have you ever seen that if your family members are observing his year of anniversary that he died on Friday, so every year we are going to play music and then on Sunday we can then bury him? You can't even trace the grave. Sometimes even the grave had been graded and being used for breeding and other investments. How can Jesus die and then resurrect every year? It's my question to you, my fellow human being. Don't be fooled. You understand? Because at least you have brain. At least you have brain. You have grown. You have gone to school. You can read and write. So I am quite surprised. I have never understood why a full-grown human being should sit down so lazily and allow someone from somewhere to brainwash them to the extent that they believe even that one fake than the real. It is why, well, they are being persuaded by Satan. So Satan is ruling their hearts. That's the answer. So there's no enlightenment. Christ died once. He is in heaven. Christ will not die repeatedly and then rise repeatedly every year. This is not found in the Bible. If you want to remember him, this isn't the way to remember Christ. There is no biblical proof that Jesus commanded his followers to remember him through Easter celebration. That's why I always have been saying that I find it so cheap to teach the doctrines of our church. Because you see, the truth is the truth. Those who claim that Easter celebration is in the Bible, please come and then teach me. I'll be glad. You cannot prove this with a single, but unless you have your own Bible. But from what I'm reading, you cannot prove this. Once again, it wasn't even a law for the Israelites. And even if it was their law, I'm a Christian, Israel of God. I'm not the nation Israel. So it is not part of my obligation. We have no authority from God to celebrate or observe or participate in this event as holy. To include something in our life as part of our obedience to God, we must first have His authorization. Galatians 3 verse 17. In all you do to glorify God, I'm sure. So are you celebrating instead to glorify God? Then which God? It is a pagan God. Because the living God is unaware of what you are doing. Of course, you are lost anyway. That the Church of Christ will condemn. I'm not condemning. I am facing fact. Because you don't know the Bible. And your pastor can't even come and then stand. Me, you can invite me for a debate. In fact, I'll be glad. Of course, I've been doing debate online. And I've never lost. Because all what I treat are in the Bible. Yours isn't in the Bible. And if you want to prove, you must prove from the same Bible. You are hereby informed that we have 3 ages. The patriarchal age, the Mosaic, and then the Christian age. We are in the Christian age. Now, Mosaic dispensation came to overthrow the patriarchal age. So also, Christian age has overtaken the Mosaic age. So what do you mean by to celebrate a Sabbath and a whole lot? They were all in the Old Testament to play music, to pay tithes, have passed and gone. We are in the Christian age. That's why you are calling yourself a Christian. Now, if you want to follow Moses, then I think you have to go and then look for him, where he is, to follow him. And his time has passed. He is dead. And he cannot come again to live. So those of you who are playing music, playing tithe, it means you are worshiping and the Mosaic dispensation. That dispensation has passed, and it is no more. It was in the form of bondage. So Christ came to liberate us. All these things are found on my YouTube and my Facebook. The 3 major dispensations. So I taught them 1, 2, 3, and then I had to end with the 2 covenants, the Old Testament and then New Testament. And whatever you do in words or deeds, do all in the name of the Lord Jesus, giving thanks to God the Father through him. Are you celebrating Easter? To glorify God. Which God is that? It means you are rather participating in paganism. Unknowingly, you are unaware. These are things that you must know, that sometimes you might think that you are worshiping God, but indirectly you are worshiping Satan. C is Acts 12 verse 4, a proof to celebrate Easter. Because I'm not going to read the Acts 12 verse 4 because I don't have, I'm not going to read that. I don't have a King James Bible. But let's all understand. Some proudly proclaim Easter is in the Bible if King James Version is true. Yeah, it is true. When you read the King James Version, it mentions Easter. No other version uses the word Easter in the verse. Now the Greek word for this Easter there was Pascha, meaning Passover. That's all. So it was the King James Version which translated the word Easter to cause a confusion. But you see that the New King James Version, where the word Easter had been replaced with the correct word Passover. Now, if you're going to exegete Acts 12 verse 4. But before then, I'll give you the story. Let's go to Acts 12 verse 1. King Herod Agrippa the first has killed James, In fact, he began to harass or to suppress the church. Which church are you talking here? The Church of Christ in Jerusalem. So this was the Jerusalem Church of Christ. You sit down there and then argue that my church isn't in the Bible. Me, I don't care. Once again, I always have fact to back this argument. Now, listen. Now, about time Herod the king stretched out his hand to harass some from the church. Which church? Your church? Did King Herod live when your church was invented? Isn't that you have been brainwashed? I am once again asking that. Was your pastor alive when King Herod the Agrippa the First was alive? When was your church established? By who? So here the Bible is mentioning from the church. From which church? Jerusalem Church of Christ. Be humble and learn, then you know. So he killed James, the brother of John, and he saw that the Jews were happy. And so therefore he also arrested Peter and put him in prison. So let's read the verse 4. So when he had arrested him, he put him in prison and delivered him to 4 squads of soldiers to keep him, intending to bring him before the people after Passover. So the word Passover here is what the King James mentioned as Easter. Now I'm going to explain something here. Okay. Now, that Peter was in 4 squads. So let's have here as Peter. So Peter was somewhere here, as you can all see. So here is a square, here is a square, here is a square, here too is a square. So 4 squads. And each side had 4 soldiers. So 4 soldiers here, 4 soldiers here, 4 soldiers here, 4 soldiers here. Making how many? 16. And Peter was in chains here. Now, according to Acts 12 verse 4, King Herod the Agrippa the First had arrested James's brother Peter and jailed him. The Roman soldiers were divided into quaternions. That's what I explained. So quarter. I think I'll go there to explain again. Okay, so you see that mostly people will say 4 square. Okay, I mean it's wrong. How can you say 4 square? If you say 4 square, you are wrong. The thing is already squared. So don't say 4 square. Why not 4 square? Because here makes an angle of 90 degrees. Here makes an angle of 90. Here makes an angle of 90. Here makes an angle of 90. Of course, you can test this using what we call engineer's tri-square. Now, what is engineer's tri-square? Engineer's tri-square is a tool used to test and make angles of 90. Now, to make means to fabricate. So, if you want to make this joint, then the tri-square is needed to set this side to be squared. So that here, from here to here will be 90. And we said that it's a tool used to test and make. So now you have been able to use it to make the square. Now, to test is to inspect. Are you okay? So please don't say 4 square. Peter was placed in here, and each square had 4 soldiers. So quaternions. We mean 4 groups of 4 soldiers each. Already have been explained. Herod planned to bring Peter before the people after the Passover festivities, which is mistranslated as Easter. Please, you are hereby informed that King Herod the Agrippa I was not going to celebrate Easter. These are things that you must know. He was not going to kill Peter to celebrate Easter. The word there is rather Passover. He didn't want to make this occasion dirty. That's why he was waiting. The Bible says that he was waiting after. Why? Because he had killed James and the Jews were impressed. So he became encouraged, enthusiastic to seize and kill more Christians. The text highlights the antichrist nature of Herod to suppress the early Christians' church. Once they have mentioned the church of, or the church at Jerusalem, Church of Christ at Jerusalem. So he was trying to bring fear upon them. He was arresting them and killing them one by one. Of course, if you read, let's go to the same Act 12, verse 5. Peter was therefore kept in prison, but constant prayer was offered to God for him by the church. By what church? They met in the house of Mary. So basically, maybe that was where the church at Jerusalem were worshiping at, or were assembling. Who are you to go and then erect a full building for church? They will kill you. Even in their various homes, they were being, of course, Paul began, Acts 8, verse 1 downwards. He began to be arresting them from house to house. That's why the disciples, they scattered into Samaria, Judea, and then a lot. Of course, that was where Christianity spread based on the hunting. Now, the King James is saying that they offered prayer earnestly. So here he's saying that Peter was therefore kept in prison, but constant prayer was offered to God for him by the church. Now, when you come here, the word constant is adverb to mean without variation. Now, what's a variable in math? Today is 2a, tomorrow is 2b. The a becomes a variable. Of course, the 2 becomes a constant, and the a is variable. You go to class and ask the student, why is it that in math, 2a, the a is a variable? They won't be able to give you an answer. Unfortunately, some math teachers are not, they can't even explain. It means that the variable can change. To vary means to change. So today 2a, tomorrow 2b. So a variable is something which changes. Now, constantly, that prayer was offered for Peter, constantly. Constantly is an adverb to mean without variation, without a change. If you are using the King James Version, it is saying that prayer was offered for Peter earnestly. The word earnestly is also an adverb. We mean in a serious manner. If you read on and on and on and on, Peter was freed by the prayer. So King Herod was not able to kill Peter. At times I've been using this to give sermon on prayer. We move on. The Bible should not be read as a graphic or newspaper. Find different versions, find concordance to trace the Hebrew and then the Greek origin. Use your common sense to explain. I'm not using any commentary. Of course, I studied English 2 years, USA, because I knew I was going to teach the Bible in English in future. A language is a way of living. It is an individual choice. The world is ruled by literacy, and English has become the official language for science and commerce throughout the world. So commerce means in trading and then in business. So I see that if I communicate in English, it becomes very easier for the entire world to access than to speak in my local language. We move on. I think that one is helping than using the local language. Through exegesis, King Herod was not going to use Peter to celebrate Easter. So now let's explain Passover. Passover was a festival celebrated by the Israelites on the 15th day of the first month in the early spring. Numbers 33, verse 3. Numbers 33, verse 3. They departed from Ramesses in the first month, on the 15th day of the first month, on the day after the Passover. The children of Israel went out with boldness in the sight of the Egyptians. So you have known that the Passover was a common celebration of the Israelites. You are hereby informed that King Herod didn't want to disgrace, how do I even say, to make a dirty of their celebration. He had to honor it. That's why he was waiting after then Peter would be killed. So no, he didn't want to destroy their tradition. Of course, he respected their tradition a lot, even though he was against them. There was no law for the Israelites to celebrate Easter then. There was no law. So you can't tell me that Easter was even alive. Once again, it was mistranslation. Does not mean that the Bible is wrong. So don't sit down somewhere and tell me that the Bible is wrong. Okay. We have textbooks, but not all textbooks must be read by students. Does not mean that the author does not have knowledge. Okay. But there are new, revised, so we can have how do they even write it? Volume 1, Volume 2, the same author. The moment there's Volume 2, they mean that some errors from Volume 1 have been corrected. So the New King James Version is the new episode or edition of the King James. The King James text does not convey the meaning of the original, but has greatly contributed to foster an opinion that such a festival was observed in the time of apostles. Yeah. So I don't actually blame the world so much, 100%. Maybe their pastors are celebrating Easter based on what they read from the King James Version. Meanwhile, ignorance is not an excuse. At least I'm telling you that the word Easter is rather Passover. And Passover was a festival for the Israelites. To believe this is gross ignorance. Easter, Christmas, and other days that men have invented and proclaimed holy do not fall under the teaching of Romans, the law of liberty. We are liberal, you understand? And we are not bound to any traditions and the paganism. We are free. Christ means freedom. We are free forever. Christ means light over darkness. So if you are celebrating Easter and thinking that Easter is in Acts 12 verse 4, then you are still in bondage. You are more or less celebrating a festival of pagans. Last one, the 4 biblical reasons why Churches of Christ do not celebrate Easter. Christians do not celebrate or observe Easter as a holy day because, 1, our Lord instituted the Lord's Supper before his death and requested all Christians must take part in his remembrance. Let's read Matthew 26, verse 26 to 29. And as they were eating, Jesus took bread and broke it, and gave it to the disciples, and said, "Take, eat, this is my body." Then he took the cup and gave thanks, and gave it to them, saying, "Drink from it, all of you. 28. For this is my blood of the new covenant, which is shed for many for the remission of sins." 29. But I say to you, I will not drink of this fruit of the vine from now on until that day when I drink it new with you in my Father's kingdom. So if you want to remember Christ, then use the Lord's Supper. In my church, we take it every week. Luke 22, verse 17 to 20. Let's see something there. Luke 22, verse 17. Then he took the cup and gave thanks and said, "Take this and divide it among yourselves. For I say to you, I will not drink of the fruit of the vine until the kingdom of God comes." And he took bread, gave thanks and broke it, and gave it to them, saying, "This is my body, which is given for you. Do this in remembrance of me." 20. Likewise, he also took the cup after supper, saying, "This cup is the new covenant in my blood, which is shed for you." Now, it is believed that Luke was a journalist to Paul. Are you okay? These are things that you must know. The apostles and the first century churches obeyed this command and took part in every first day of the week. The apostles and the first century churches of Christ, are not your church. Your church was not founded in the first century. First century, what was your pastor? This, your preacher, your spiritual, where was he in the first century? We are in the 21st century. Do you know when the century came? Do you know when Christ established his church in Matthew 15 verse 18, that thou art Peter, upon this rock I'll build my church, and the gate of Hades shall not prevail against it. Some version, if you go to King James, they say that the gate of hell. That's why the King James is an error. When you die, you don't go to hell, you go to Hades, either to paradise or the towers. So the church was planted on the rock. The rock is Jesus Christ. The church was not planted on Peter. Thou art Peter, comma, upon this rock. So the Greek of Peter and the rock are not the same. We move on to Acts 20 verse 7. They continued. So Jesus did it, they had to continue. So let's the continuation. Acts 20 verse 7. Now on the first day of the week, when the disciples came together to break bread, Paul, ready to depart the next day, spoke to them and continued his message until midnight. When they met on the first day of the week to break bread, this is what they did. To remember Christ. They didn't celebrate any Easter. They did not celebrate any Easter. To remember Christ. Christ himself had to institute the Last Supper. Matthew 26 verse 26 to 29. Christ did not celebrate Easter. I suppose you are listening to me very attentively, that Christ himself, before he ascended to heaven, he instituted Last Supper and commanded them that they must do it every first day of the week, Sunday. So you see that now you have been defeated with your pastor, who knows nothing. Now 1 Corinthians, I think 23, right? No. 1 Corinthians, let me see. Where the Last Supper is there? 11, sorry. 1 Corinthians 11, 23. So Paul, and for our church, this is the ideal quotation when you are asked to lead Last Supper. For I received from the Lord, which Lord? Jesus Christ, that which I also delivered to you. So Paul passed on what he had to the others and to us. No deviation, no addition, no subtraction. That the Lord Jesus, on the same night in which he was betrayed, took bread. 24. And when he had given thanks, he broke it and said, take, eat. This is my body, which is broken for you. Do this in remembrance of me. The me is in capital M, proper noun, making reference to Jesus Christ. In the same manner, he also took, so Paul is also doing what? Doing the same thing. In the same manner, he took also the cup. Of course, we are making reference to what Christ did. After supper, saying, this cup is the new covenant in my blood. This do, as often you drink it, in the remembrance of me. Paul was repeating what Christ did when he was alive. The last one. For as often as you eat this bread and drink the cup, you proclaim the Lord's death till he comes. We will even end it without wasting time. So number one, because we use Last Supper, so therefore we don't celebrate Easter. On Sunday, I remember Christ by dining with him, period. It is vain worship and the commandments of men. We will begin from Isaiah 29 verse 18. Isaiah 29 verse 18. Isaiah 29 verse 18. Therefore the Lord said, inasmuch as these people draw near with their mouth and honor me with their lips, but have removed their hearts far from me, and their fear toward me is taught by the commandment of men. Matthew 15, I think verse 7 to 9. Hypocrites, well did Isaiah prophesy about you, saying, these people draw near to me with their mouth and honor me with their lips, but their heart is far from me. 9. And in vain they worship me, teaching as doctrines the commandment of men. Mark 7, verse 7 to 9. Mark 7, verse 7 to 9. In vain they worship me, teaching as doctrines the commandment of men. 8. For laying aside the commandment of God, you hold the tradition of men, the washing of pitchers and cups, and many other such things you do. He said to them, all too well you reject the commandment of God, that you may keep your tradition. In vain they worship me, teaching as doctrines the commandment of men. That's Mark 7, verse 7, Matthew 15, verse 9. It is seen in Isaiah 29, verse 18. It is vain worship. So anybody who celebrates any church who celebrates Easter worship in vain. You are worshiping in vain. The worship is in vain. The church worships in vain. You are only doing to impress human beings. This can be found in the Bible. Where is your source of information? You can't prove it. So always they repel you with anger, and then the crowd will support them. So they will always repel you. But deep down their hearts, they are aware that they are deceiving the members. They are deceiving you. It is vain worship and the commandment of men. Now, point 3. Christians never walk according to the tradition of the elders. Mark 7, verse 5. That you are an elder. This is our hometown. I'm the chief. So, during my era, the whole town, any resident, or everybody here must celebrate Easter. I will object it. Who are you? And who do you think you are to tell me how to live my Christian life? Then the Pharisees and scribes asked them, why do your disciples not walk according to the tradition of the elders? Because they were following Christ. Christ is superior than everybody. Christ supersedes everybody in this life. So I'm a Christian. And so therefore, I do not walk according to the tradition of the elders. You are not sensible than Christ. Christ is a creator. You are a creature. The creature is not above the creator. Christ is going to judge me. So to hell with your tradition. 4. Easter celebration is an addition to God's word. Revelation 22, verse 18 to 19. Revelation 22. Verse 18 to 19. For I testify to everyone who hears the word of the prophecy of this book. If anyone adds to these things, God will add to him the plagues that are written in this book. 19. And if anyone takes away from the words of the book of this prophecy, God shall take away his part from the book of life, from the holy city, and from the things which are written in this book. Don't add or subtract, or there are consequences. So we are also Christians. When we partake in the celebration of Easter, we have added to to God's word. Now, conclusion. We are warned, just as the Israelites, not to follow the multitude to sin. Exodus 23, verse 2. Exodus 23, verse 2. You shall not follow a crowd to do evil, nor shall you testify in a dispute, so as to turn aside many to pervert justice. My interest is the A. The Israelites were warned not to follow the crowd to sin. They were to walk in the path of God, His commandment, period. So also we as Christians, we follow Christ. Christians are to follow God, not men. Ephesians 5, verse 6 to 11. Christians are to follow God, not men. Ephesians 5, verse 6 to 11. Let no one deceive you with empty words, for because of these things the wrath of God comes upon the sons of disobedience. Empty words that we should celebrate Easter. No facts. Therefore, do not be partakers with them. Walk in light. For you were once darkness, but now you are light in the Lord. Walk as children of light. Formerly, we were in bondage. Now they are free. Therefore, we are walking in the light. For the fruit of the Spirit is in all goodness, righteousness, and truth. Finding out what is acceptable to the Lord. Last verse. And have no fellowship with the unfruitful works of darkness, but rather expose them. And the secretary has decided to expose that Easter celebration is paganism. Whether you understand or not, my friend or enemy, I don't care. My duty is to do what my master has sent me to. We ought to obey God rather than man. Acts 5, verse 29. Acts 5, verse 29. So Peter is here. Now, he does not fear anybody. But Peter and other apostles answered and said, we ought to obey God rather than men. So once again, I'm asking, who are you that should come and then follow you to celebrate Easter? Free from idolatry. 1 Corinthians 10, verse 14. Free. They didn't even say run. Free. Run as faster as you can. Free is different from run. 10, verse 14, I think. Very good. Therefore, my beloved, flee from idolatry. I would have explained that. Anything which you see to be important than worshiping God or worshiping, and so if we are celebrating Easter, Easter becomes your idol. Why? Because you have chosen it over God's commandments. So it becomes your idol. When it is time for church and you are in the home watching TV, the TV becomes your idol. So idolatry is not about an object. It could be money. Someone who has been obsessed with money, so he or she will never close the store to go to church, but rather want to make money. The money and then the business has become your idol over God. The death, you see, I love this much. The death that will kill a man begins as an appetite. So Proverbs 14, verse 12, 15, verse 25. So So 14 verse 12. There is a way that seems right to a man, but its end is the way of death. I mentioned the 16 and 25. There is a way that seems right to a man, but its end is the way of death. The death that will kill a man begins as an appetite. We have accidents to happen during Easter and then even Christmas. Some have died. Some have become disabled. Some have been impregnated. Some folks have been stolen. Someone has been killed. Some people have been drowned because of Easter. Christ brought us freedom of religion. In the Lord's church, no one will advise you to go and sleep with someone using condom. It is Satan and his vices. Indecent dressings. You on Monday, if I'm in Ghana, you see, Monday, people will dress so indecently. They will drink every festivities and then dressing. It's what you see in town. It is an eyesore. It is I recall this, the ugly side of beauty. Exposing themselves. Precisely our burden. Being women. And the boys too will dye their hair with some lines in the hair, useless dressing, drinking of alcohol, fighting. Some will be killed. People are going to lose their gadgets. Some will lose their girlfriends. Some will lose their boyfriends. Some will steal to impress the partner. People will go and waste money which they can use it to plan ahead for their children or their relatives on Monday or throughout this Easter celebration. The death that will kill a man begins as an appetite. What will kill you starts to be so attracting and tempting. You are attracted, you are tempted, and then it will mislead you. No matter how you say it, people will continue to listen. On Wednesday, there's a church at Efia doing evangelism, so I also went there. Now our podium, now supposing that here is our podium, they were watching football match right there, and they were disturbing a lot. So now I was sitting near the gutter, the bridge. Then I was saying that, hey, in fact, it reminds me of the flood. Noah's Ark, where the people were making fun of Noah. They didn't know that the ark was going to be their place of safety. They fooled around until the rain began. People who were good swimmers, they tried a lot to showcase their swimming skills and then abilities. For how long can you swim? For how long? For how many days? For how many weeks? For how many months can you swim? And they were all drowned. Salvation was in the ark, not on the ark, on top or anywhere. In, not on. So also, in this time, salvation is found in the Lord's church, not on. We were preaching there. The truth was right beside them. They were watching football and then they were shouting. One thing I hate is watching football. Of course, already I've tweeted it. Who are they? Are they leading me to my salvation? See their dressing, indecent dressing, haircuts. So the boys are also learning from them. Why should I waste my eyesight to watch an Antichrist official? For what? To gain what? To gain what? Oh, that it is only a sport. Can you watch pornography? Because you're tempted. So also this one too, the boys are being tempted. Now football is good. Why from betting? A tree is known by its fruit. A good fruit cannot bear bad fruit. A bad tree can't bear good fruit. It is good, fine. Why from betting? Why is it that betting is precisely linked to football? Be wise. Christians must be circumspect. Ephesians 5, verse 15 to 17. Be careful how you walk as wise, not a fool, redeeming the time, because the days are evil. Therefore, do not be foolish, but understand what the will of the Lord is. Be careful how you walk as wise, not a fool. Means that be careful with your association. Be careful whom you choose as your associates. Verse 16, redeeming the time, because the days are evil. Yes, of course, because we are in Easter. Some will die, some will lose a lot because they have refused to utilize the time others are wasting. Be careful from being brainwashed by this generation to be misled. So the 15 and 16 are warnings or caveats. When you have refused to listen, then the verse 17 will say that, therefore do not be foolish, but understand what the will of the Lord is. The phrase, do not be foolish, means that pay heed to instructions in 15 and 16 in order to become wise. The will of God is doing things right, doing things at the dictates and commandments and teachings of Christ. Period. Ecclesiastes 11 verse 9. Then we bring everything to an end. Rejoice, O young man, in your youth, and let your heart cheer you in the days of your youth. Walk in the ways of your heart and in the sight of your eyes. But know that for all these, God will bring you into judgments. King Solomon has never prevented anyone from enjoying life. Of course, we are learning the book of Ecclesiastes. King Solomon has never ever prevented anyone, or the Bible has never prevented anyone from enjoying. So God doesn't care. Of course, free moral agent to decide what you want, to worship him, to insult him, he doesn't care. But he will die one day and you go meet him. You see your foolishness. A student who don't just class that he's so smarter, the exam is there. For every exam, there's a marking scheme. I know your ignorance that I wasn't taught. They gave me a wrong method. We are using marking scheme to mark. Period. The interest is that you have deviated, and that's all. We fail you. If you don't care who you are and then who polluted, no. There is a marking scheme. Your answers must fall within. If it is out, then you are a failure. Who cares? You risk it. If you think that you are tired, you can go and marry, do business, or do different things. But there's a marking scheme. What you have written is not about marking scheme, but fall within. If it is over, it means you are out. Trespassing means trespassing. This is celebration. It's a foolish pleasure. God will judge. When you read the Ecclesiastes 11 verse 9, you have the right to enjoy your life. No one cares. Being good or bad, known or unknown, God doesn't care. When you die, he judges you of your own choices. Now, if you go out there for the Easter Monday and you are raped, it is the consequences of your own choices. So it means that God has judged you there for following, the foolish pursuits of the world. To see the way you are dressed. And nowadays, there are some gender biases that a miniskirt and an indecent dressing is not a criteria to rape someone. Me, I'm not surprised that the wisdom of this world is foolishness with God. 1 Corinthians 3 verse 19a. How can you be so foolish to pass a law that indecent dressing is not the cause of rape? So therefore it means that the women have the right to dress indecently, and if for a man to rape them, and then at the court, why do you rape? Oh, because she was wearing a miniskirt. Then they are even going to increase your prison sentence. And I am asking that, do you find this foolishness in the Bible? Why can you support this your worldly wisdom law from the Bible? The Bible will always caution that women must dress decently and foolishly. The word is saying that indecent dressing is not a cause of rape. But you are hereby informed that for fire to occur, the fire triangle heats, fuel, and then oxygen. So we can have the air, maybe the heat is also there. When one is out, okay, when one is out, where there's no oxygen, no fire will occur. Where there's no air, no fire will occur. Where there's no fuel, no fire will occur. When you dress indecently, not all men are attracted, but petrol meet fire. Some will be attracted. They will be tempted to rape you. Now, they will be in jail. But think about the child that maybe you're going to bring to the earth, or the assault that you went through. So refuse to be polluted by the world, and therefore you're going to dress indecently. You may end up being raped by some gangs, and this is a sexual assault. Who knows? Maybe at the end you may die, or they run away. So you can choose to enjoy your life, as said in Ecclesiastes 11 verse 9. Fine, to celebrate Easter, but you see, where God has allowed the choices, He is also going to judge being right or wrong. So God is not going to control you as TV using remote. Don't go. No. He has given you the freedom to roam, to enjoy your life in everything. It is your duty to segregate between evil enjoyment and then righteous enjoyment. Is Easter celebration biblical or paganism? How can Christ die and rise every year? Where in the Bible can you prove that Easter should be used to replace Christ's death and resurrection? Did Christ tell you to remember him on every Friday and Sunday in April? So all this have been answered. You are hereby informed that Acts 12 verse 4, the word Easter is rather Passover, and therefore the apostles never used any Easter in the Bible to remember Christ. Christ himself did not tell them that after I am gone, use Easter to remember me. On that note, my name is Besefata. Number is 0248 026557. I'll see you next time. Bye bye.